New tonight, years of DWI cases in question. Fellow officers scrutinize the credibility of one of their own, and now Bexar County judges doing the same. The News 4 I-Team's Mariah Medina investigates the debatable tactics and arrests by a longtime DWI officer now being brought to light after a Bexar County judge ordered SAPD to hand over his secret file.
Stay on that blue light, man. Stay on that blue light for me.
When it comes to DWI investigations, officer honesty is paramount.
So much of what the DWI investigation is reliant upon that officer telling the truth.
The only thing that you have in your system right now is those 3 draft beers. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So if they say, I smell alcohol, and they look at your eyes and say, well, they look bloodshot to me, and your balance wasn't fantastic, it wasn't great. All of a sudden now, just based on the officer's observations, and the credibility of his badge, he can take away your freedom and you will be a second-class citizen until that case is dismissed.
One DWI officer defense attorneys Shannon Locke and Joseph Holscher are all too familiar with.
Officer Kasberg is one of those.
Officer Kasberg is notorious.
Officer William Kasberg has been with San Antonio Police for nearly 30 years, majority of his time in DWI.
Within the defense community and even some of the prosecution and judges, he's believed to be a liar.
In fact, judges have discredited him as a witness, a rare occurrence in and of itself. But the true scope of his questionable past wasn't known until recently, when a Bexar County judge ordered more than 250 pages from his personnel file be turned over to the Bexar County District Attorney's Office, as well as criminal defense attorneys. Those documents we've exclusively obtained.
Here you have incident after incident after incident spanning decades with Officer Kasberg, and nobody has done anything to take this man off the streets. That's what I noticed about the file. It's worse than I would have imagined.
He's been recognized for his numerous DWI arrests, but allegations Kasberg targets Hispanics, exaggerates in his reports, arrests people who are below the legal limit, not to mention a suspension for padding his statistics, call the numbers into question.
It's offensive that SAPD turns a blind eye to Kasberg because he has a long history of this, even before Chief McManus was the chief, of lying on his reports, of not activating his video to actually corroborate his story, and of arresting people who are not in fact intoxicated for DWI.
The oldest allegation is from 2001 and the most recent from 2018. But as recent as July of this year, Judge Andrea Revelos in County Court 5 found him to be not credible, sending a statement that reads in part, quote, I did find Officer William Kasberg not to be credible, in a motion to suppress after testimony was given. However, that determination was not based solely on the in-camera inspection of his personnel file. Also this year, Judge Melissa Sines in County Court 2 deciding Officer Kasberg wouldn't be allowed to testify in a case and ordering the disclosure of the 250-plus pages to the DA's office and defense attorneys for cases which Officer Kasberg is involved. Judge Sines also issued a comment that says in part, quote, all I can say is that I did review his personnel file as part of a case that is no longer pending, and I did make determinations on what items from that file needed to be disclosed, and that he would not be allowed to testify in that case. Locke, who has gotten clients acquitted due in part to Kasberg's credibility issues, says the district attorney's office should stop calling the discredited officer as a witness in DWI cases.
A judge's hardest job is to be a check on the state, but the state needs to do their job and not force judges into that position.
Holscher, who has also gotten cases involving Officer Kasberg tossed out, says it should go further.
The second thing they ought to do is investigate him and see if this man is engaging in criminal conduct, because his file suggests that he's lied under oath repeatedly, which is a felony.
But to the shock of both attorneys, Kasberg is a DWI instructor, teaching field sobriety tests and more to area law enforcement and to cadets at the training academy. The district attorney's office declined to make anyone available for interview, but the office's communications director gave this written statement saying in part that the information sent out by the DA's ethical disclosure unit has more than doubled in the last 2 years. He was silent as to whether the office will stop calling Kasberg as a witness.
And if the Bexar County District Attorney's Office chooses to place Kasberg on that list of officers that they will no longer call, years worth of DWI cases could be dismissed and even more under review. However, this decade's late disclosure has some criminal defense attorneys wondering what else they aren't being told. For the I-Team, Mariah Medina, News 4, San Antonio.
And the police department declined to do a sit-down interview. Instead, they sent us a statement that reads in part, quote, "In regard to Officer Kasberg, the department thoroughly investigated any allegations made against Officer Kasberg throughout his 28-year career. Officer Kasberg's DWI training is conducted alongside other experienced officers and in compliance with department policies and procedures." You can see those documents for yourself right now on our website, news4sa.com. Now, the question for you, do you have a story that you'd like the I-Team to look into? You can call the News 4 I-Team tip line at 210-476-1070, or you can also send them an email at iteam@news4sa.com.